Let's see if we can answer some of these questions together. We're going to start by looking at this diagram in the top of our worksheet that says basic unit. And we're going to add some things to this diagram. So on your diagram, you can do this with me. First of all, let me define what they mean by basic unit. A basic unit would be something like the meter or the gram or maybe a liter. Now, oftentimes these basic units that we're using are just too big or too small to be useful. So if you had a whole bunch of meters, you might choose to put a prefix in front of the word meter to represent that. For example, we don't use it a lot, but we could attach the prefix deca. Decameter means that there are 10 meters, 10 of the units. A decagram would be 10 grams, a decaliter would be 10 liters. So deca, just as a prefix, tells us that there are 10 units. If there were even more meters and we wanted to express that in a different unit, we could express it as a hectometer. So prefix there again is hecto, H-E-C-T-O. That can go again with any of our units, hectometer, hectogram, hectoliter, and that's what you use to represent 100 units. And then another prefix that you've probably heard before would be if there were 1,000 units, you would attach the prefix kilo, so a kilometer would be 1,000 meters. A kilogram, 1,000 grams. All right, so those are prefixes that are often used for bigger measurements. On the flip side, we have prefixes that could be used for smaller measurements. If it was maybe not a meter, but smaller than a meter, you could attach a prefix such as deci, D-E-C-I. Decimeter means that there's 1/10 of a meter. Another prefix you're probably familiar with is the centimeter, which is a hundredth. And again, these aren't limited to just meter. They could be a centigram or a centiliter. It just means a hundredth. And then finally, the millimeter, or the milligram, milliliter. It's a thousandth. All right, if you're taking a foreign language, these might be a little bit easier to remember because some of these sound like maybe Spanish or a French word that you've learned for the number 10. For example, in Spanish, the number 10 is diez. So you could see kind of the same root word there. The number for 100 in Spanish is cien. You heard of a century. And mil is the Spanish word for 1,000. And we use the same prefix there, so that might help you remember these. Okay, let's see what we're going to do with these prefixes. There are some instructions here that I wanted to highlight for you, and it says basically if you want to convert to a larger unit, you move the decimal point to the left, or you divide. If you want to convert to a smaller unit, then you move it the other way, to the right. So let's apply this to our first example, this little rule that we see written up there. We have 1,000 milligrams, and we want to convert those to grams. My little chart here, maybe it might be useful to add some notes to it. I'm going to write these are the small units. You probably know that already, but I'm going to write it anyway. Small units, and these are the big units on this side of the chart. So this means that the milligram is a smaller unit than the gram. Okay, so we're converting to a larger unit, which means I need to move the decimal to the left. I'm here at the milliliter, or the milligram, and I want to get to here, back to the base unit of gram. So if you notice, I have to make 3 steps on my chart to get there. So I would move the decimal 3 times. Recall that if there's no decimal written, that's because it's the last thing after the last digit. So my decimal is after that third zero. So if I move that decimal point 3 places to the left, 1, 2, 3, that puts it right between the 1 and the 0. And I would write that just as 1 gram, or I could write it as 1.000 grams. Later on in other science classes, you'll learn when those digits count and when you need to write them and when they're just placeholders. But the point is we need to move the decimal 3 places and we need to move it to the left. Let's try another example. The next one, they want us to convert from centimeter to millimeter. So this one, I'm going to start here at the centimeter, and I'm going to try to get to here, the millimeter. So basically I need to go to a smaller unit and move the decimal to the right. I'm doing this one step down my ladder. So I'll take the decimal that was written after the 0 and I will make it so that it moves one place to the left. So got 160 centimeters. I'm moving it the wrong direction. Let's try that again. I need to move it to the right because I'm moving to a smaller unit. Well, to move it to the right means I've got to move it beyond where it is now to another decimal place. So I'm going to have to put a 0 in there to give me another place to move it over. In other words, 1600, and now the decimal is after that last 0. All right. So that's a good rule to follow. You're going to use that rule as you complete the rest of page 1 of the worksheet and the back of it, page 2. Let's look at the comparing problems and see how you might approach those. Now, if you're going to compare two values, you want to make sure that they have the same units. And that's the trick with the compare problem. We need to make sure that they're either both centimeters or they're both meters. We can't compare centimeters to meters. So why don't I convert my centimeters into meters? In other words, I'm going to make this this step here. I'm starting with centimeters and I'm trying to get 2 steps over to the basic unit of meter. And that means I'm going to have to, since I'm making this a larger unit, a meter is larger than a centimeter, I'm going to move the decimal to the left. I'm going to do it 2 times. So I take the decimal that was written after the 6 and I move it over 2 places. So that's actually 0.56 if I wanted to turn that into meters. And that's a lot easier to compare now. They're both in meters. I can see that 0.56 meters is smaller than 6 meters. So I would write that lesser than sign. Okay. And we need to do that for each of these problems to decide if they're greater than, less than, or equal by making sure that our units are both the same so we can compare. You'll do that on the rest of the worksheet. If you have other questions on this, you should contact me and I'll do my best to help you with those. Thanks for watching this and good luck with your assignment.